Alrighty. Well, Shabbat Shalom, everyone, to those of you who are joining us here and in the building at Temple Shalom, to those of you who are joining us on Facebook Live and on YouTube and on TempleShalom.com, those three different options that people are joining us with. We're glad that all of you are with us virtually this evening. For those of you who have a Siddur in your hand, we are on page 128 in your Siddur, page 128, as we the second piece of music, or the second lyrics, I should say, or the second sentence from the top of the page, Ma yafeh hayom Shabbat Shalom. What a beautiful day it is today, this Shabbat of peace. Ma yafeh hayom Shabbat Shalom. 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 Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Bim 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 bam, bim 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 bam, bim bam, bim 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 bam, bim 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 bam. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat 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 Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Bim, bam, bim, 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 bam. Bim, 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 bam. Bam, bim, 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 bam. Bim, 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 bam. If you will turn back to page 120, just a few pages back in your Siddur, we come to our bracha, our blessing for lighting our Shabbat candles. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav etzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Page 130, we come to our Psalms of Kabbalat Shabbat as we begin to welcome the beauty of Shabbat, the rest of Shabbat, the peace of Shabbat, Lechuneranana ladonai. Come, let us sing joyfully to God as we prepare ourselves to enter into this time of Shabbat. Lechuneranina, neranina ladonai. Lechuneranina, neranina ladonai. Come, let us sing a song. Sing a song to Adonai. Come, let us sing a song to Adonai. Lechuneranina, neranina ladonai. Lechuneranina, neranina ladonai. Naria l'sui sheinu Kadma pana betoda. Naria l'sui sheinu Bismirot yalo. Lechuneranina, neranina ladonai. Lechuneranina, neranina ladonai. Page 131. Come, let us sing a new song. Let us sing a new song to God, all of the earth. Shiru Ladonai Kol Haaretz, Shiru Ladonai Shir Chadash. Those first two lines of Psalm 96 in reverse order. Shiru Ladonai Kol Haaretz, Shiru Ladonai Shir Chadash. Shiru Shiru Ladonai. Shiru Shiru Ladonai. Sing unto God all the earth a new song. I will sing unto God a new song. Sing unto God and we'll all sing along. All the earth a new song unto God. Adonai, Kol Haaretz, Shiru Adonai, Shir Chadash. From Psalm 97, we'll read together at the top of page 133. Adonai is sovereign, let the earth exult, the many islands rejoice. Dense clouds are around God, righteousness and justice are the base of God's throne. O you who love Adonai, hate evil. God guards the lives of God's loyal ones, saving them from the hand of the wicked. Light is sown for the righteous, radiance for the upright. O you righteous, rejoice in Adonai and acclaim God's holy name. The 4 lines up from the bottom of page 132, those 2 lines that say, light is sown for the righteous and radiance for the upright. If we are righteous people, if we are upright people, pointing our hearts in the direction as we get hinted to from the actual translation of the Hebrew, then we will be given light and radiance and happiness in our world. 4 lines from the bottom of page 132, Or Zarua Latzadik, Yishrei Lev Simcha. 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 Yishrei Lev Simcha. Or Zarua Latzadik, Yishrei Lev Simcha. Yishrei Lev Simcha. Lai 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 lai. All right, for those of you who are here with us and for those of you at home, if you want to not only sing words but participate a little bit more, you can get your hands ready because we can clap in the middle of this psalm because it's a joyful psalm, so we can go like this. O Or Zarua Latzadik Ul Yishrei Lev Simcha. Two claps in the middle there. Or Zarua clap clap Latzadik Ul Yishrei Lev Simcha. Or Zarua Latzadik Ul Yishrei Lev Simcha. Ul Yishrei Lev Simcha. Lord Zarua Latzadik Ul Yishrei Lev Simcha. Ul Yishrei Lev Simcha. Lai 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 lai. We read together from the middle of Psalm 98. It's on page 134. Sing praises to Adonai with the lyre and melodious song, with trumpets and the blast of the shofar. Raise a shout to Adonai, the ruler. Let the sea and all within it thunder. Let the world and its inhabitants, let the rivers clap their hands. The mountains sing joyously together at the presence of Adonai, for God is coming to rule the earth. God will rule the world justly and its people with equity. From Psalm 99, exalt Adonai our God, and bow down toward God's holy mountain, for Adonai our God is holy. Those words in Hebrew, the last three lines of the Hebrew on page 135. Lo memu Adonai Eloheinu vehishtachavu lehar kodsho. Lo memu Adonai Eloheinu vehishtachavu lehar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu vehishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu vehishtachavu lehar kodsho. We read together Psalm 29 on page 136 and 137. A psalm of David. Ascribe to Adonai, O divine beings. Ascribe to Adonai glory and strength. Ascribe to Adonai the glory of God's name. Bow down to Adonai, majestic in holiness. The voice of Adonai is over the waters. The God of glory thunders, Adonai, over the mighty waters. The voice of Adonai is power. The voice of Adonai is majesty. The voice of Adonai breaks cedars. Adonai shatters the cedars of Lebanon. God makes Lebanon skip like a calf, Sirion like a young wild ox. The voice of Adonai kindles flames of fire. The voice of Adonai convulses the wilderness. Adonai convulses the wilderness of Kadesh. The voice of Adonai causes hinds to calf and strips forests bare. While in God's temple all say glory. Adonai sat enthroned at the flood. Adonai sits enthroned sovereign forever. May Adonai grant strength to God's people. May Adonai bestow on God's people well-being. Those last two lines in Hebrew, the last two Hebrew lines on page 137. Lai 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 lai. Adonai oz le'amo yitein yitein. Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Adonai oz le'amo yitein yitein. Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Lai 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 lai. Lai lai lai. Lai 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 lai. We welcome in the Shabbat bride, this image of beauty, this message of coming together, of welcoming in a time of peace, of welcoming in a time of thoughtfulness, a time for us to refresh our minds and refresh our souls and refresh our bodies as well. A little melody that comes to us from congregation Kol HaNeshama, a Reform Movement congregation in Jerusalem, that almost every Friday night they sing this particular melody, which was written there. Lecha dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 b'nei Shabbat nikavela. Lecha dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 b'nei Shabbat nikavela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad ki shmi'anu el ha'miyuchad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad v'shemo tiferet v'letfila. Lecha dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 b'nei Shabbat nikavela. Lecha dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 b'nei Shabbat nikavela. Nikrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha ki mekor ha'bracha merosh mikedem nesucha sof ma'aseh b'machsheva tehila. Lecha dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 b'nei Shabbat nikavela. Lecha dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 b'nei Shabbat nikavela. Fifth verse. Hitoreri, hitoreri, diva orechu mi'ori, uri, uri, shir daveri, kevod Adonai, alayich nigla. Lecha dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 b'nei Shabbat nikavela. Lecha dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 b'nei Shabbat nikavela. Verse number 9, we rise as we face the door and welcome in the image of the Shabbat bride. Boi v'shalom ateret bala gam b'simcha uv'tzola toch emuneh am segula. Boi chala, boi chala. Lecha dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 b'nei Shabbat nikavela. Lecha dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 b'nei Shabbat nikavela. We can all be seated. As we have welcomed in the Shabbat bride, we can kind of turn around and wave. I know we're still social distancing, but we can kind of wave Shabbat Shalom to everybody in the room. To those of you, we'll wave to you out on Facebook. We'll wave with my left hand to those of you on YouTube, back to my right hand for those of you on TempleShalom.com. And Shabbat Shalom to everyone, whether you're joining us in person in the building or in person online, or if you're watching this on the replay on YouTube or on Facebook Live. We're glad that you're with us this evening. We continue page 140. Psalm 92, the Psalm of Shabbat. Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat, let us sing a song of Shabbat. Tov L'Hodot L'Adonai, it is good to give thanks to God for all of those things in our world. Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat, Tov L'Hodot L'Adonai, Ulizamer L'Shimcha Elyon, Ulizamer L'Shimcha Elyon. Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat, Tov L'Hodot L'Adonai, Ulizamer L'Shimcha Elyon, Ulizamer L'Shimcha Elyon. V'hagi b'boker chasdecha, ve'emunatecha בלילות, עלי אסון ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון בחינות. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. כי שימחתני אדוני בפועלך, במעשה ידיך ארני. מה גדלו מעשיך אדוני, מאוד עמקו מחשבותיך. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. Psalm 93, which was on page 141, is a psalm that talks about the idea of God completing the creation of the universe. And of course, when God completed the creation of the universe, that led into the very first Shabbat. So let's read those words together on page 141. Adonai is sovereign. God is robed in grandeur. Adonai is robed. God is girded with strength. The world stands firm, it cannot be shaken. Your throne stands firm from of old. From eternity you have existed. The ocean sounds, Adonai, the ocean sounds its thunder. The ocean sounds its pounding above the thunders of the mighty waters. More majestic than the breakers of the sea is Adonai, majestic on high. Your decrees are indeed enduring. Holiness befits your house, Adonai, for all time. We continue page 144 as we come to Chatzi Kaddish, and we make our way from our Kabbalat Shabbat into our Ma'ariv service. Yitkada v'yitkada shemei Rabbah, B'amad yivrach Yerutei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala, Ba'agala, uv'izman ka'harivim meru, Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach, Ve'alam olam me'amaya, Yitbarach, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitpa'ar, V'yitromam, V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar, V'yit'ale, V'yithalal, Shemei d'Kudusha B'richu, Le'elam in kol berchata, V'shirata, Tushbechata, V'nechemata, Da'amiron be'alma, V'yimeru, Amen. We rise as we turn to page 146. As we invite ourselves to pray together, and then we accept that invitation with the words of Baruch Hu. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai. Baruch Hu et Adonai, Hamevorach. Baruch Adonai, Hamevorach. Hamevorach le'olam va'ed. Hamevorach, Hamevorach le'olam va'ed. We can all be seated. We give thanks for creation as we read together at the top of page 149. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sails of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. 3 lines from the bottom of page 148 in the Hebrew. El chai v'kayam, tamid yimloch aleinu, le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'ma'arim aravim. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. As we turn to page 150, we give thanks for the gift of Torah, for its commandments, for its laws, for its statutes. We give thanks that it guides us from the time we rise in the morning until the time we lay down at night. We give thanks that it is our guidebook all the days of our lives. May it never be far from us. Praised are you, O God, who loves your people Israel. We join in those words in Hebrew on page 150. Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Amcha ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadita, Otanu limadita. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shochteinu, Kumenu nasiach b'chukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, u'v'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed. Ki hem chayeinu ve'orech yameinu, uvahem nehege yomam v'layla, nehege yomam v'layla. Ve'ahavatcha al tasir mimenu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Page 152 and 153, we join together in the words of Shema. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Leolam Vahed. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. We continue together at the top of 154. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha uv'chol meodecha ve'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom alevavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha uv'kshartam le'od al yadecha v'hayu letotafot beinenecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uv'hisharecha leman tizkeruhu v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kidoshim le'elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim v'hod lachem le'elohim ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem emet. We read the translation of those words on page 155. Love your God with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at work, whether you are tired or you are rested. Let them guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your house or outside your gate. They are reminders to do all of my mitzvot, so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai, your God. I led you out of Egypt to become your God. I am Adonai, your God. Page 157. Standing on the parted shores of history. We still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. As our ancient ancestors did, we sing these joyful words that we find on page 158 as we make our way out of our Mitzrayim, out of our place of slavery, and into our Eretz Tovah, into our good land, into our land of freedom. Micha Mocha at the very top of page 158. Micha Mocha ba'elim Adonai, Micha Mocha ne'edar ba'kodesh, Nora tehilot, osei fele, Micha Mocha ba'elim Adonai, Micha Mocha nedar ba'kodesh, Malchutecha ra'u banecha, Bokei hayam b'fnei Moshe u'Miriam, Ze'eli anu be'omru, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, Micha Mocha ba'elim Adonai, Micha Mocha nedar ba'kodesh. Baruch atah Adonai, Go'al Yisrael. Praised are you, Adonai, the Redeemer of Israel. Each night we ask God to lie us down. And may we be guided in peace as we lie down. And tomorrow when we rise up, may we rise up to life. May God spread a shelter of peace over us and give us good counsel. May God protect us from enemy and illness and war, from famine and sorrow and wrongdoing. May God watch over us. May God deliver us. May God watch our going and our coming, now and forever. Page 160. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'ha'amidinu shomreinu l'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'ha'amidinu shomreinu l'chaim. That little indented paragraph in the middle. Ushmor tzeitenu uvoinu l'chaim u'shalom mitavei adolam. Yai la lai 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 la lai lai la lai 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 la lai 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 lai. Lai la lai 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 la lai lai la lai 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 la lai lai la lai 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 lai. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'ha'amidinu shomreinu l'chaim. Shomreinu l'chaim. Shomreinu l'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai haporei sukat shalom aleinu ve'al amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. The people of Israel shall keep Shabbat. Observing Shabbat throughout the ages is a covenant for all time. It is a sign for all time between me and the people of Israel. For in 6 days Adonai made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day God ceased from work and was refreshed. Page 162. Veshamru bnei Israel et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam v'litolam. Veshamru bnei Israel et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam v'litolam. Benuven bnei Israel oti leolam oti leolam. Veshamru bnei Israel et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam v'litolam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et ha-shamayim et haaretz. Veshamru bnei Israel et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam v'litolam. Ubiyom hashvi'i Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash. Veshamru bnei Israel et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam v'litolam. Veshamru bnei Israel et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam v'litolam. We come to the Amidah, beginning with our Zimun, with our little meditation on page 164. On 164, we say before God our hopes. God, open my mouth that I can speak words of praise to you. Between 164 and 180, we'll say words of praise. And then at the very end of page 180, we'll say, may those words that I spoke and those things that I felt in my heart, I pray, God, that they will be acceptable to you. It's kind of like the bookends of our prayer. God, help me say words of praise. And then at the end, once I've said them, please find those words of praise acceptable to you. There'll be words that I say in community together, as we will in just a moment. There'll be words that we'll say individually when we come to our silent prayers. We rise, we begin together on page 164. Anana na 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 Adonai. Anana na 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 Sifatai tiftach. Anana na 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 Ufi yagi tehilatecha. Anana na 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 Adonai. Anana na 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 Sifatai tiftach. Anana na 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 Ufi yagi tehilatecha. Anana na 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 Adonai. Anana na 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 Sifatai tiftach. Anana na 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 Ufi yagi tehilatecha. Anana na 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 Adonai. Anana na 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 Sifatai tiftach. Anana na 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 Ufi yagi tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu v'imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Konei HaKol, v'Zocher Chaste Avot v'Imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei v'Nehem, Liman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer Moshiach Magin. Baruch Atah Adonai Magin Avraham Bezrat Sarah Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai Mechayei HaKol Atah Rav Lehoshia Mashiv HaRuach Umorid HaGashem Mechalkel Chayim Bechesed Mechayei HaKol Berachamim Rabim Somech Noflim Verofech Oholim Umatir Asurim Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar Michamocha Ba'al Givurot Umido Melach Melech Mimit Umechaye Umatzmiach Yeshua V'ne'emanat Halachayot HaKol Baruch Atah Adonai Mechaye HaKol Atah Kadosh V'Shimcha Kadosh U'Kadoshim B'chol Yom Yahallelu Chasela Baruch Atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh. We continue page 172 through 181, reading the traditional Hebrew prayers on the right-hand side of the page, or the poetic renditions on the left-hand side of the page, or your own personal meditations in your heart. When you finish with your silent prayer, please be seated.
ונספר תהילתך על חיינו נשואים בידיך, על נשמתנו ונתנו לך בעל ניסך של חיים ומעלו. כל החיים יהיו חסר לה.
Page 178, a prayer. May you give us a great amount of peace, O God, for you are the sovereign of all peace. May it be pleasing to you to bless your people Israel in every season, in every year, in every moment with peace. We praise you, Adonai, our God, who blesses your people Israel with peace. Shalom Raha al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Raha al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. כי אתה הוא מלך אדון לכל השלום, כי אתה הוא מלך אדון לכל השלום. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. We turn our thoughts to those who are in need of healing. As we turn in our Siddur to page 371, we think of each of these that we name now and ask for refuah shlema, for complete healing for every one of them. Refuat hanefesh, healing of their souls. Refuat haguf, healing of their bodies. We ask for healing for Yishav Zaza, Carrie Schillinger, Betsy Appel, Robert Oppenheim, Carrie Susser, Brian Zabel, Sylvia Chuk, Reuven Ben Sipora, Stephen Sharrow, Chaim Mordechai Ben Shmuel Yissaschar, Rosalind Weinberg, Irene Lambert, Moshe Ben Avraham, John Mitchell, Alan Davidson, the Weiss family, the Markinson family, the Schwartz family, Arnold Simon, Aryeh Tzvi Ben Chana. If you are at home watching us on one of our platforms, if you have someone you're thinking of, you can say their names out loud in your place where you are. For those of us in the sanctuary, if there's any names that anybody wants to include, we'll start on this side. Are there any names on this side of the sanctuary that anybody has for names for healing? Thank you. Anybody else on this side of the building? Thank you. Anybody else? We also include in our healing blessings those who are suffering from the COVID-19 virus. Here in the United States, the currently reported 9,831,600 active cases, and we know that that's an underestimate. In the land of Israel, the 30,054 cases, we know that's an underestimate. And worldwide, the 18,009,529 currently reported COVID-19 cases. Again, we know a grave undercount of all those who are suffering. For every one of them, we think of them as we join together in these words of healing, the words of our Mishaberach healing prayer in the middle of page 100 or 371. Mishaberach Avoteinu Mekor HaBracha Le'imoteinu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach Imoteinu Mikor HaBracha Le'avoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shleima, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. This week, we read from Parashat Noach, from the story of Noah. Of course, one of the most famous stories in the Torah. We have children's songs about it. In Los Angeles, there's an entire wing of a museum dedicated to its story that was originally built for kindergarten children, but I've been there with kindergarten children, and I've been there with high school children and college students, and high school students and college students enjoy it more than the kindergarten children do. If you've never been there, if you ever make your way to Los Angeles, go to the Skirball Museum and go to the Noah's Ark exhibit in the Skirball Museum. It is amazing and fantastic, whether you are 5 years old or 105 years old. It's an amazing, incredible exhibit. I don't know about you, but I have a menorah in my collection that looks like Noah's Ark, right? I was singing earlier today with our preschool kids, and we sang a little Noah's Ark song. But if we really look into the depths of the story, and not just a cute story, a guy had a boat and he put some animals on the boat, and there was a flood and they all got off the boat and everybody lived happily ever after. The basic story that we kind of know. There's a lot more depth to the story. In fact, we could go on for hours. I won't, but we could go on for hours studying just this short little story that really, it's only one chapter in the Torah. That's all it is. It's one chapter long, really. But there's an interesting piece that it says, Noach, ish tzaddik v'tamim haya b'dorotav. It means that Noah was a righteous man, and we could say a simple man, a naive man, a blameless man. The word tamim gets translated all those ways in his generation. And the rabbis they asked this question, was Noah a good guy or not such a good guy? Was he a good guy? Was he a righteous man, as it says in the Torah? Or tzaddik haya b'dorotav, he was righteous in his generation, which meant, the rabbis say, perhaps it means that Noah was kind of a jerk, but everybody else was a bigger jerk, so he looked pretty good compared to all the really bad people. Or was he really a righteous, truly righteous person? Some of the people who ask the question say this. Noah heard God say, Noah, build an ark, because I'm going to cause a flood and I'm going to wipe out all flesh, every living thing, not just people, but all of the animals as well. I'm going to wipe out everything on the earth, and you and your family will be saved in the boat. And what did Moses say? Anybody know what Moses said? He didn't say anything. He started building a boat. And he spent 120 years, according to tradition, building the boat. And for 120 years, we don't have a report in the Torah that he said anything to anyone, not to any people, and not to God. I mean, it says he tried to convince the people, but it didn't work, so he gave up. Now, fast forward 10 generations past Noah. Noah's, one generation would be his son, next generation would be his grandson, so it would be Noah's great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandson, so that would be his 8th great-grandson, was a guy his name was Abraham. And Abraham, 10 generations removed from his 8th great-grandfather, hears from God, I'm going to wipe out Sodom and Gomorrah. And what does Abraham do? He builds a boat, right? No, he doesn't build a boat. He argues with God. What do you mean you're going to wipe out the city? You can't do that. That's a terrible thing. That's a vengeful thing. What if I could find 100 people? Okay, what if I could find 50? All right, how about 10? What if I could just find one righteous person in the temple? You know what? Abraham negotiates with God. And there are some of the rabbis who say, why didn't Noah negotiate with God? For goodness sake, he took 120 years to build that boat. And in 120 years, he couldn't convince one person to be righteous enough to get on the boat with Noah and his family. One person. 120 years. How much effort could it take in 120 years to convince one person? I can't think that it would take 120 years. I think if you gave me 120 years, I could find someone that I could convince of anything in 120 years if you gave me that much time. But according to the Torah, Noah didn't even make the effort. And so some of the ancient rabbis say, well, that's the proof that Noah wasn't truly as righteous a person as Abraham. But remember, it tells us that Noah was tzaddik v'tamim b'dorotav. He was a tzaddik, he was a righteous person, he was a tamim, he was a simple person or a blameless person in his generation. Often we look back and we say, well, did the people in history do the right thing? It's a good question. But we also have to look back at those people in history and say, did they do the right thing in their time? And then, are we doing the right thing in our time? Did Noah do the best he could do in Noah's time? Perhaps he did. Should Noah have argued with God? Maybe in Noah's generation, 10 generations before Abraham, this wasn't the kind of thought that anybody would even have, because society had not advanced to that point yet. But by the time it got to Abraham, society had advanced to a point where people understood now the idea that we could have an argument with God, that we could say, God, I don't think this is right, let's negotiate this. As we advance through time, society advances, human knowledge and understanding advances. Indeed, every one of us advances. If we go back in time just in our own lives, the world has changed around us in so many ways. I'm going to tell you that even Zev, who's sitting right there in front of me, the world is different. Hi, Zev. The world is different from when he was born. From those of you who can't see Zev, if you're online with us watching, Zev is clearly just celebrated his 93rd birthday. Is 4, 5, 3. Zev is 3. Zev, how old are you? Show me your fingers. This many? Excellent. Even in the 3 years that Zev has been alive, in just his lifetime, our world has changed. And Zev, how many are you going to be on your next birthday? Show me how many. See, now a year from now, when I ask Zev how old he's going to be, Zev's going to do this. He's going to go like this. Hey Siri, will you please tell the rabbi how old I'm going to be on my next birthday? And then Siri's going to talk to me and tell me the answer, because that's how far we've advanced in just this short period of time. But Noah was not in a generation that could question God. Abraham was in a generation when he could question God. As we move forward through time, Lidor Vador, from generation, we need to reevaluate how we interact with God, how we interact with the world. In Noah's time, Noah only knew the people that lived around Noah. In Abraham's time, he journeyed from Ur all the way to the land of Canaan. In modern terms, from Iraq to Israel. Today, we journey around the world. If we fly on an airplane, in under a day, we can be halfway around the world. If we have one of these things with the video functions, in 5 seconds, we can be anywhere in the world. And so our vision of how we help others can change too. Noah tried to help others by convincing them a little bit to do better, and then following God's plan to make an ark, and that would save humanity. Abraham argued with God, perhaps in that way to save humanity. We can give public service announcements and convince other people that maybe we should wear one of these things, get vaccinated, and help each other stay healthy, and in that way, change humanity. In every generation, we find our generation's way of talking to God. We find our generations of helping others. We find our generation's way of continuing the work of God's creation of the world, in hopes that one day, since God left it a little bit unfinished for us to do the work, one day we'll complete that work, and we will find the perfection of the universe and the world that God gave to us. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may this be God's will, and may it be our task. We turn in our Siddur to page 586 as we rise for Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach l'Adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובהי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, כך כתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום בהשבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. Page 590. כי המלכות שלך היא עולמי תמלוך בכבוד, ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו Ushemo echad. Ushemo echad. We can all be seated. We turn our thoughts to those who have died in seasons gone by, this season, in the years that have gone by. We recall the yahrzeits, the anniversaries of the deaths of Abraham Tenenbaum, Herman Simon, Irving Moglin, Lillian Mirlu, Lillian Shapiro, Alfred Schwartz, Edward Summerfield, Rowena Cohen, Ruth Robertson Brassard, Seymour Sidman, Ida Neff, Louis Katz, Noah Berlin, Ben Waxman, Helen Hubble, Jane Weingarten, Sadie Weiss, Sam Hafter, Abraham Lenevsky, Albert Haim, Rose Douglas, Solomon Cosgrove, Esther Kaiser, Jesse Morris III, Mabel Lipsher, Margaret Mayer, Sage Morris, Alfred Sobelman, Harley Argenter, Janet Duchin, Louisa Schillinger, Molly Wallach. We also recall those worldwide who have died in this COVID-19 pandemic. In the land of Israel, the 7,885 reported deaths. Here in the United States, the 732,265 reported deaths. And worldwide, the 4,865,064 reported deaths, each of them a precious soul. We are in this period of Shloshim, the first 30 days, following the deaths of Suzanne Zimmerman and of Dr. Markita Zadorova. We also recognize the recent deaths of Shirley Bach Grossman, sister of Perry Bach, who died on October 5th. The funeral took place a little earlier today. We also recall the recent death of Lillian Asulin Simcha Bat Asher, grandmother of Sonia Burke, who died in Israel yesterday. Yehu zichronam livracha. May their memories be an eternal blessing. We ask mourners to rise and those whose custom it is to stand with them. As we turn in our Siddur to page 598, 598. As we join together in the words of Kadisha Tom, the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chaye chon uvyomei chon uv'chaye d'chol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uvizman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei d'kudesha b'rechu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata. Da'amiran be'alma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav. Huya se shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. V'imru amen. We can all be seated. As we are seated, I'm just going to disappear out of the screen for those of you online for just a moment. And so a few announcements for all of us before we bring our service to a close and head outside for Kiddush and Motzi. First of all, thank you all for joining us. We're thrilled that for those of you who are here in the building at Temple Shalom, and we are equally thrilled for all those of you who are able to join us on our various online platforms. I want to remind you that our Kol Nidre appeal is still going. So if you haven't given any money to the Kol Nidre Appeal. Our goal is 100% participation of all members, whether you're donating $18 or $18 million. If you'd like to donate $18 million, please see me after the service. I'd really like to talk to you about that donation. Please also know you can buy things at King Soopers and donate to the temple without it costing you a penny. You can buy things on Amazon Smile and donate money to the temple without costing you a penny. You can donate box tops for education without costing you a penny. 3 ways that you can donate money by just doing the regular shopping that you are doing. If you need help with those, please call the office. We'd be more than happy to help you get set up with any of those. Please join us next Shabbat, next Friday night, the 15th, and next Saturday morning, the 16th, as we join together with Graham Malone, son of Clint and Lori Malone, as we celebrate his bar mitzvah. We're also glad that his sisters, Peyton and Sasha, will be here as well. The entire Malone family, we're excited to celebrate with them on the 15th and 16th of October, next Shabbat. The very next day, please know you can come to the Men's Club morning minyan and program. We'll be hearing from Jonathan Cohen, a member of our congregation, who will be speaking about being a 21st century gold miner in Colorado Springs. As far as I know, the only gold miner in our congregation, but he's mining gold. Well, I'm not going to spoil his story, but it's up in the mountains. I'm not going to tell you the whole thing, but he's digging for gold up there, and you'll find out about being a Jewish gold miner. There were a lot of them back in the 1840s. Now there's one, at least one today, October 17th. You can find out more about that. Also, please sign up for our next adult education offering with Kobi Chumash, Beyond Borders, the history of the Arab-Israeli conflict, starting this month in October. You can register now. Also, my next class, they never taught me that in Hebrew school, will be the first weekend in December. We just studied about the Amidah in December. Not exactly such an academic thing, but a really cool thing. Hidden Israel sites that most tourists never see in Israel. So you might want to come check that out. Please note that on Sunday, November 7th, just about a month from now, is the congregational meeting. So please join us for that. We'd love to have you there. Lots of important information to be given out there, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on things. That will be, you'll be able to be here in person. You'll also be able to watch it virtually on our website, as well as, I believe, on Facebook. So more information about that. Tomorrow morning, our Shabbat morning service starts at 9:30, and on Sunday morning, 9:30 tefillah, followed by class for all of our kids. And this Sunday also, for any of you who might be parents of kids in our religious school, at 10 o'clock here at Temple Shalom will be our first meeting of the PTO of our parent-teacher organization at the beginning of, at 10 o'clock Sunday morning, to get looking forward toward the different tasks that the PTO does for us. Anything you want to know, it's on the Temple Shalom website, the Temple Shalom website calendar. It's in the Tuesday newsletter that goes out to you, as well as the monthly bulletin. If you can't find it there, you can always call us here in the office, and we'd be happy to get what information you would like. If you will turn to page 625 in your Siddur, we will finish our service with the words of Adon Olam, and then for those of us who are here in the building, we'll make our way out front for a little Kiddush and Motzi. If you'll look at the very last 4 lines, into your hands I entrust my spirit when I sleep and when I'm awake, and with my spirit my body also. Adonai is with me, so I will not be afraid. Those are the translation of the last 4 lines on page 625. The melody goes a little something like this. Beyado afkid ruchi be'et ishan ve'aira ve'im ruchi geviati Adonai li velo ira ve'im ruchi geviati Adonai li velo ira Beyado afkid ruchi be'et ishan ve'aira ve'im ruchi geviati Adonai li velo ira, ve'imruchi giviati. Adonai li velo ira. And also in our announcements, I don't know if he's watching right now, but I think he might be. And it's my pleasure and joy to welcome back to Colorado Springs Rabbi Saul Rappaport, who is the rabbi for the United States Air Force Academy, who is now back here in the Springs. I got to communicate with him a little earlier. He had been shall we say, on assignment in the Middle East, and just got back here and did some great work there. And so, Rabbi Rappaport, we're happy to have you back in town and looking forward to doing some things with you and with the cadets at our Air Force Academy. And so we'll be seeing you and your family and our cadets very soon. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. To those of you online, we wish you a beautiful Shabbat evening. For those of you here at Temple Shalom, we'll see you outside in just a moment for Kiddush and Motzi. Shabbat Shalom. Be'yado akidruchi ve'tishan ve'ahira ve'imruchi geviati Adonai li velo ira.